the China-Russia alliance and Joe Biden's less than comforting response. That's the topic of today's Bold and Blunt, and I'm your host, Cheryl Chumley, giving you a Christian conservative look at today's news, politics, culture, and events. And if you have been paying any attention at all to the news, at least the headlines, you know that China and Russia are growing uncomfortably close in recent times. In very recent times, actually meeting face to face. And Joe Biden, when asked about this alarming partnership, because remember, neither China nor Russia are considered friends of America. When Joe Biden was asked about this, what was his response? And nothing to see here. You guys are making way too big deal of this growing partnership. And then he went into his classic, weird, uncomfortable whisper. Never mind about it. Go home. Nothing to see. I hate when Joe Biden does that. It's so creepy. It's so creepy. His face just contorts into this come hither little boy type of look. And then he whispers to the audience as if the lower his voice gets, the lower his volume projects, the more honest we're supposed to regard him. Well, it's quite the opposite, actually. And before I get into all that, though, I want to quickly mention that if you like Bold and Blunt, you may get Bold and Blunt delivered right to your email box. Yes, indeed. No joke. I am not kidding around. You can go to WashingtonTimes.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, find the newsletter section, click on it, find my particular box in that newsletter section. It's called Chumley, Bold and Blunt. Click on it and you can sign up for my 3 times a week newsletter. It's delivered right to your email box Monday, Wednesday, Friday, giving you the bullet points and fighting words you need to ward off the evil spirits that have taken over the Democrat Party, as well as my twice weekly Bold and Blunt podcast. And if you don't want to go through that, click, right? If that takes too long for you, if that takes too much of your time, or you're not anywhere near a computer screen where you can go to WashingtonTimes.com, guess what? You can go to edify.app online, though I don't know how that might help you if you're not close enough to a computer screen to go to WashingtonTimes.com. I don't know how you will go to edify.app, but that being said, you can also get Bold and Blunt at edify.app. That is the online platform for your faith-based podcasts. And there's a third option out there. Yes, door number 3 is you can get Bold and Blunt wherever you get your podcasts. You know what the easiest thing to do is? Go to a search engine and type in Bold and Blunt podcast or Chumley Bold and Blunt. And then look at all the places to subscribe that pop up. There are many. And if you already are a subscriber, let me quickly say thank you, because you are the ones who are making Bold and Blunt such a success. My regular listeners out there, I truly, truly do appreciate you. Joe Biden downplays Russia-China alliance, calls it vastly exaggerated. That's what he said just a few days ago. That's what he said speaking in Canada at a joint press conference with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who I must say, as each day, as each week goes by, as each new photograph emerges of him, is looking more and more like that famous or infamous, however you want to put it, Cuba dictator, Fidel Castro. I don't know, just saying, do a side-by-side. Maybe you've seen those side-by-sides already online. Maybe you've actually looked into it and read some of the whispered histories between Justin Trudeau's mother and Castro. Just saying, something interesting to look at as you're listening to Joe Biden whisper at you. I don't take China lightly. I don't take Russia lightly, he said, standing next to Justin Trudeau, who, after he was asked about this growing Russia-China alliance and how worried the White House was about it, but I think we're vastly exaggerated, he says. Really? Really? Because I don't think the Russia-China alliance, growing friendship, is talked about enough. I think it's downplayed. I think we're getting into biblical revelation, end-time type prophetic discussions here, and they're being largely ignored by this White House. But listen, don't take my word for it. You can hear for yourself how Joe Biden answered a question from a journalist at this press conference with a smiling Justin Trudeau next to him. Joe, what about this growing alliance? And Joe goes,
Look, I don't take China lightly.
I
don't take Russia lightly.
I don't.
But I think we vastly exaggerate.
Yeah.
I've been hearing now for the past 3 months about China is going to provide significant weapons to Russia, and they're going to... I've been talking about that.
Yeah. Nothing to see
They
here.
haven't yet.
No.
Doesn't mean they won't.
They
haven't yet.
They haven't.
And if anything's happened, the West has coalesced significantly more. How about the Quad? How about Japan and the United States and South Korea?
Yeah.
How about what we've done in terms of AUKUS? How about
There's nothing to see here. Go home. Didn't you hear my whisper? Don't you know at this time, at this point, when I whisper, that means something definite, that I'm speaking truth to power? It's interesting if you watch the video of this, Justin Trudeau just smiling. Oh, you peon reporters out there, you peon people of the world, asking such silly questions about an alliance between Russia and China. All the while thinking, don't you know that we are all aligned with China, America, and Canada too? We love China. We love communism. And Russia, yeah, they're aggressing right now, but at least they're on the right communist track. That's what Justin Trudeau was thinking as he stood next to Joe Biden smiling. And you know what Joe Biden was thinking when he was asked that question? He was thinking, when's my next ice cream break? Why do I have to listen to these reporters asking me questions about that foreign policy stuff? Don't they know it's time to visit Ben and Jerry's? Joe Biden, in charge of foreign policy in America, equals perilous times. That's it. There's no plus. There's no long equation here. There's no plus, minus, plus, plus. It's just Joe Biden's foreign policy equals perilous times in America. I suppose you could make a Joe Biden plus foreign policy, but just Joe Biden in the White House equals perilous times for America. The mathematical equations, the mathematical narratives don't get any simpler than that. It's third grade math, folks. That's all it is. Or, to put it like Joe Biden would say it, it's third grade math, folks. Now you know I'm telling the truth, right? That's the standard. That's the standard of underscoring the importance and the truthiness, the honesty of something. Just whisper it. Works for Joe. The media go, oh, Joe must be really serious about this. He's whispering. And did you see him lean forward? Yeah. So, I have a guest today who is speaking on behalf of her husband, named Curtis Ellis, who sadly passed away due to a previous fight with cancer. Cancer takes another great one out. But she's here on his behalf to talk about his latest book that was just recently published. His name, Curtis Ellis, author, Pandemonium, China's Global Strategy to Cripple America. Her name, Maxine Albert. And I'm happy to say Maxine is here as a guest on Bold and Blonde. Maxine, thank you so much for being on Bold and Blonde. It is great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here and give out this really important message.
Yeah, it is an important message. As China and Russia seem to be forming this sort of strange partnership, and Joe Biden, meanwhile, is asleep at the wheel, it's putting America's security in peril. You agree?
Oh, I couldn't agree more, Cheryl. And I'm here to talk about my husband Curtis Ellis's book Pandemonium, which he finished just before he passed away, because he saw for decades and decades that China was our number one enemy. And the book Pandemonium, China's Global Strategy to Cripple America, saw what China was doing to us in terms of economic warfare and everything to weaken America. And talking about Russia and China, I just saw that President Xi and Putin now have agreed on a global technology pact, a plan to control the entire internet. To change the internet, that means that they're going to control all the information and the propaganda. And if that isn't scary, I don't know what is.
This is part of their New World Order that they just discussed in their recent meeting, yes?
Exactly, Cheryl. This is something that Curtis has in his book that he was talking about for decades, that China wants to replace America, establish the New World Order, and the only way we can do that, I mean, the book is a wake-up call, is to defund them and decouple from China, because we've created them. We created this economic superpower and military superpower, and they are so far ahead of us. I mean, their minister, China's new minister of trade, said that they are ready for conflict and confrontation if we don't change, and we are totally not ready, because their navy is bigger, we financed it, their military is better, bigger, and this is a huge wake-up call to America.
And what's really interesting that listeners should be aware about Curtis's book, and I'm sorry about his loss to cancer in 2021, but his words live on in this book, because he has been speaking, or he was speaking, about the perils of China, as you said, for decades. And he was speaking at a time where many in America, including Republicans, who were looking at China as possibly a good ally of America in terms of economic partnerships. That has been proven oh so dastardly wrong and perilous.
Oh, Cheryl, so true. I mean, 2 weeks ago, the Joint Select Committee on China, composed of Republicans and Democrats, both said, we underestimated China. They are our number one enemy. We have to decouple. But, the reason Curtis Ellis never underestimated China was because he saw the truth. It was unfortunately always about the money. They sold America out. As corporate elites made money, Wall Street made money, politicians made money who were lobbied by China. And America, the American citizen, was sold out, and now they're going, we slept, well, Washington slept at the wheel. So that couldn't be more true.
So let's talk for a couple minutes about his words to those left behind in America. Pandemonium, China's Global Strategy to Cripple America. It just came out in February. What are some of the high points, the bullet points from this important book?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, first of all, the book is a wake-up call, because many people, before some guy in Montana looked up at the sky and saw a Chinese spy balloon going over our nuclear missile silos, happened to look up, America woke up, but people were not aware of that. And when Curtis Ellis says, if he were today, here, he would say, this has been going on for decades and decades. China's spying on us. And the points in the book are, it not only is it a wake-up call, but it's a way to end this. So Curtis shows that we're funding our biggest enemy, that we have to change the way we're dependent on our biggest enemy for our major supplies, our most important things. In this book, Curtis says our first wake-up call was the pandemic, when we saw that we couldn't get pharmaceuticals. And China said they are going to take Taiwan. And if we don't change our ways, they're ready for conflict and confrontation. And when they do that, we don't have the Navy that's prepared. They can stop our pharmaceuticals. So the only way to deal with this, Curtis Ellis gives a comprehensive plan, a blueprint to decouple from China, go back to the way we were, like made in America, buying things in America, first identifying the strategic things. And the Joint Committee on China said, we need a strategy to do that. Well, here it is in this book. We have to stop feeding the dragon.
Part of what you say entails going back to a time where it was popular to have pride in America. And it's interesting that you brought up the coronavirus pandemic, because to me, one of the greatest failings of America that came out of that was the move away from individualism, from the idea that our rights come from God and government's only there to protect them, into this new way of thinking about collectivism, that we wear face masks not because they protect us, but they protect others. We get shots, untested, unproven shots, because they protect others. And that's the Chinese communist way. Don't you think, looking around, that we have moved farther down the path toward China communism than we even acknowledge?
Cheryl, it's so interesting you say that. That's exactly what Curtis said was one of the dangers in this book. And not only is it economic warfare and now a military that we have to worry about, but it's our whole way of life that China is co-opting. I mean, they have influence in the movie industry. You won't find any movie that comes out and tells the truth about Hong Kong or China because they invest it and you can't have movies there. It's the NBA, the same thing. Just 2 weeks ago, the chair of the House Select Committee, Chairman Gallagher, held a rally in Manhattan at a former Chinese police station that had been closed down. They have stations in our country policing China's nationals and giving propaganda. So, I mean, where does it end? The bank fiasco that happened out in California, what we don't hear is that so many startups from China, in China, that had China mobile numbers were involved in that. So we're still collaborating. We're still doing things. They are weakening our country day by day by day. Our Navy, the same thing that we've done with our infrastructure that we haven't invested in America, we've shut down our ships, our Navy ships, so we don't have enough ships. We can't even maintain them. So, yes, I mean, it's pervasive. And, the country has to first wake up, which I think they're doing now, because what I hear is that people want to do something, they don't know how, and we need to decouple from China, which is in this book.
That is crucial. And you asked a good question a minute ago, where does it end? Because as you described, it's not just the military takeover. It's not just the Chinese influence on college campuses. It's how people's mindsets in America are changing. And you can see that in some of the surveys about the youth of America embracing socialism over capitalism and actually embracing ideas that just 10 years ago would have been scoffed as too China, too Marxist, too communist for America. So where do you think it will end? Do you think that we have reached a tipping point of no return, or do you think that there is enough fight and resolve left in the American people to defend our American way?
Well, as Curtis Ellis says in this book, when we all first came here, our great-grandparents came here, we came here and we decided this is enough with Great Britain. We want our freedom. And the whole country united. We became patriotic. We became Americans. And we still have that capacity to become Americans, not to be influenced by greed and by money. And Curtis was ever hopeful that given a plan, like given something that America would see the truth. Now, the House Select Committee on China, which is Democrats and Republicans, both said we have a very small window. And I can tell you, Cheryl, every day I see more things of what's happening. Today it was the internet. Tomorrow, what is it going to be? We don't have the Navy. We have a small window, and we can't be like the Titanic, where so many Americans were killed. But the first lifeboats were not full because people thought, oh, this couldn't happen to us. The ship is unsinkable. So like Curtis Ellis, I do have faith in people, that people will change, that we will go back to doing what made our country successful and prosperous, and will thrive. But he says it's got to be a joint effort by American citizens, by the government, by corporations, and by the Wall Street elite. And Joe Biden has to be strong because that's what China
Well, I'm sorry, but there you have it right there. There's kind of the future chart for America in the next couple of years. Joe Biden has to be strong. I was about to say that there is some optimism on Capitol Hill with the Republicans in the House now gunning hard for American individual rights, and China being one of the issues that they're confronting. But you bring it back to Joe Biden, the importance of having a president who understands the perils of ever-encroaching China. I think we need to vote smartly in 2024, and you can't get any smarter than voting Joe Biden out.
Well, Joe Biden, what he doesn't do is act. You know, you can say one thing, but it's all about action. And as Curtis Ellis says in his book, Pandemonium, it's about action. It's about taking our country back. We have to hold everyone accountable. We have to hold Congress accountable. So buy the book, give it to your congressman, give it to your representative, and stand up for America.
What is one of the most surprising findings in Curtis Ellis's book, Pandemonium?
What I'm hearing and what everyone is saying, as you know, Cheryl, when Curtis was saying this, because he was onto the Chinese Communist Party's hostile act for years and years and years, and he said that, and he was called an alarmist. What the book has, word for word, is that he is being regarded now as a prophet and that his readings are prophetic. So when I look at something and I see something here, like he'll say, crisis is inevitable. He has predicted the situation word for word. You know, he was a trade expert and an economic expert, and it's because he looked straight clearly at it and saw everything. So what's really interesting for me is that he was prophetic because he called the truth. He wasn't influenced by money. And the whole book is just as timely today as it was then. So it's amazing because it predicts China, and you can see clearly China's path to destroy us.
So the logical extension then of what you're saying is that because he was so dead on with his predictions, the solutions that he gives in his book ought to be taken with utmost concern and implemented with speed.
Exactly. The House Select Committee is looking for a strategy to decouple. Curtis worked on that for years and years. You saw it. It's right here in this book. And it's not with us. It's not with America suffering that people think that. No, it's with America prospering.
And I have to say, I'm reading from Steve Bannon's write-up of the book. Curtis Ellis was an American original, a man of ideas, a man of action. Curtis Ellis knew the issues, knew the players, knew the traps. So that's quite an endorsement right there.
Oh, yes. It really is, and it's really true. I mean, he was such a patriot and so clear about this. And, you know, he started writing this book before his illness, and he never stopped writing because he was so, this is the nation he loved. He wanted America for Americans, and he wanted Americans to see the truth about China and see a way to take our country back with this plan.
And good for you, Maxine, for stepping in and speaking up for the same cause. I really appreciate you being on Bold and Blunt. The book's name, again, is Pandemonium, China's Global Strategy to Cripple America by Curtis Ellis. My guest, Maxine Albert, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Cheryl.
I just hope by the time politicians wake up to the peril of an ever-advancing, ever-encroaching China, if indeed they are to wake up, I just hope it is not too late for America. There does come a time where things are too late. The tipping point has been reached, and freedoms once seized are very difficult to get back. So let's just hope that Americans see the danger from China, but more than that, fight effectively the dangers of China. Thank you for listening. I want to remind you, if you like Bold and Blunt, you can get Bold and Blunt at edify.app, at washingtontimes.com, and wherever fine podcasts are offered. Tune in next time. And in the meanwhile, stay blunt, stay bold.